Welcome to Phantom Zone, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer. Then, we put it on trial for its various sins against humanity, and should a film be found guilty, it will be jettisoned into the far, far reaches of space, or a phantom zone, if you will. I'm your host, Adrian Torres, and joining me, as always, is my good Plugot buddy, Scott. How are you doing, Scott Daly?
I'm doing pretty good, Adrian. Nobody knows what that word means, but they're about to.
They are indeed going to. We went off course because we had something that drew our attention and made me go, you know what? There's an avenue we haven't gone down yet. In the hallowed halls that enshrine the various bad movies that ever were, there's one company / studio that usually stands on the shoulders of all the others. The Cannon Group. Under the control of Menahem Golem and Yoram Globus, they ushered in a period of some of the worst movies that you can ever imagine. Nowadays, the most recent studio that does something like this would be an Asylum production, which is the worst of the worst. Usually rip-offs of whatever big movies existed, or some of just the worst ideas imaginable. A couple years back, there actually was a great documentary that was called Electric Boogaloo, The Untold Story of Cannon Films, and it covers their entire course. That it's definitely worth checking out. It's fantastic. But I was going, usually as I do almost every single week now, scrolling down Vudu and came across this film. And this film is called America 3000. And it spoke to me because that felt like a movie that we should cover. It had the little Canon logo down on the corner. And I'm like, okay, a Canon film, America 3000, the state the world is in currently, this feels like something that's ripe that we should do. And I don't know entirely what to say about this film, but it confuses people. The poster tagline simply says, an outrageous post-nuke adventure. Would you agree with that, Scott?
I mean, it is certainly outrageous. And there is a nuke. And it's after the nuke. So 3 of those 4 words are correct.
There you go. IMDb says, in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where a tribe of women rule and all men are either ferals or slaves, one man rises up to free the men. Can they coexist in peace, or will they die in war? It's a rather succinct synopsis, and actually makes the movie sound kind of interesting, and probably is a lot more cohesive than the actual film itself.
Yeah, I think the guy that wrote this is a better writer than the writers of the movie.
Oh yeah, but then if you go to Vudu and their synopsis, it exposes a couple of issues with the film while being more honest. The year 2890, women rule the wasteland and enslave the men. 2 dudes escape and hatch a plan to get the women to love men again.
Yeah, so 2890, huh?
Yeah. Do you know what that's not, Scott?
It's not 3000.
It certainly is not 3000. I don't know why they didn't call it America 2890. Maybe it doesn't have that same juicy ring.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah, this feels like a marketing decision, like America 3000. But why not just set it in the year 3000?
No, we can't do that. We already sold the rights. They've already got all the materials. They're starting to make posters. They've got a giant Sasquatch type thing holding a boombox, waving an American flag. We have to go ahead with it.
I guess so.
It's they actually, I was looking into the art, and it turns out that there was an unused concept piece of art for the poster that was originally drawn by, oh God, I'm going to butcher his name, but it's the guy who did all the Conan pictures.
Yeah, I have no idea who that is.
Frank Frazetta. It's along the lines, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it's Frank Frazetta or something like that. He actually did a crazy piece of concept art for the poster that they did not go with, and I would have loved how they stuck with it, because it would have sold the movie to a whole bunch of people who did not go to see it, because this movie did not do well, which is no surprise to anyone whatsoever. Scott, what did you think about the movie?
Well, I didn't think that there would be such a thing called Men's Rights Activist the movie, but here we are. That being said, the interesting thing about this movie to me is, while it is not very good, I don't think it's that it's like poorly made. Like, there's not the writing isn't good, but there's not like ridiculous like directing decisions, like ridiculous camera work or sound. Like, it looks like they spent a fair amount of money on this film. It's just they're working with an idea that was not very interesting. So
no. I mean, it's competently made for somebody who's making a bad movie.
Right.
But I don't think that's how you want to know.
Well, no. But I mean, like, compared to some of the other movies we've watched, it's not like a mess of a film, craftsmanship wise. It's just the writing's not very good. The decisions that were made at the beginning of the process were not good ones.
Well, I mean, in a way, sure. I mean, their costumes are decent for the most part, but there's not much to the costumes. But you do have the two weird Plugot guys, who we'll get to what that means in a minute, who are standing by the side of the road, and they have the close-up of their face that shows that they've got the terrible wigs and the terrible crepe hair beards attached to their face. That doesn't really, add much confidence to the film.
No, but I mean, like, you can see where they saved, and they saved on locations, because this just takes place in various terrible-looking desert areas, or one of them just a quarry, I think, just a used-up quarry.
They're abandoned. They're abandoned work sites, basically. It looks like somebody left their equipment, and they're like, "Oh, we've got all these pipes and tubes. Let's just stack these over in the corner."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's hard for me to say that I hated this movie, because while I certainly didn't like it, and there's certainly an undertone of it that's like super offensive, it is very much a film of the 80s.
Yes.
Just this idea of the world has come to an end, which we learn later is a result of the Cold War, and women are now in charge. And not only are women in charge, but they are apparently just awful. It's a very man-centric.
Yes. We're not saying it. It's the way the movie's presenting it.
This movie is not woke. Let's say that.
No, they don't even explain how it is that the women are the ones who stood up. We open the movie with a great sign that the writers of the film are not confident in what they've made by having a giant block of text. Now, if you're having a block of text that's setting up a historical epic, maybe based on a true story film, it makes sense to have that. You need to convey the context to the people. If you have a non-fiction film, or if you have a fiction film that's based in no fact whatsoever, basically a fantasy, you shouldn't have to have a giant block of text before anyone talks. Not only do they have the block of text, but they also have a terrible, terrible narrator for the course. But I wrote down the block of text just to try to set everything up. It says 900 years after the Great Nuke, the world man created, he destroyed. Out of the darkness and ignorance of the radioactive rubble emerged a new order, and the world was Wogos. And then underneath it, two parentheses come out and says, in old speak, that's crazy. So we get the first sense that there's a made-up language that involves the word Wogos, and that means crazy.
Yeah, it's funny.
At the same time, this is an issue that I have with it. I don't know if you noticed it, but in there, the fact that it says out of the darkness and ignorance of the radioactive rubble. How is radioactive rubble ignorant?
Because it doesn't understand its purpose in life.
I read that and I'm like, okay, you took the time to write this, and then you're using a word that doesn't really work within the sentence that you've created.
Yeah, well, nobody said they were writers that wrote that. The funny thing about this opening crawl is I watched this on my 65-inch 4K television. And obviously, this is very low res, and it's like stretched to fit the size of the TV. I couldn't read it.
No,
it was too blurry. I could not read it. So like, what you're telling me is all new to me because I didn't understand. Oh, you
didn't read that?
I couldn't.
I read it, and I looked online to see if I could find an image of it to like. Maybe it was just like you said, it was fuzzy. And I looked online and somebody had put a screen cap and it was just as blurry. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's a good sign. Yeah. So the language, as far as I can tell, because they continually throw out words throughout the movie that have dual meaning. So just when you think you've figured out what one word actually means, it might mean something else. But Wogos is crazy. Frawl is woman. Cold is bad or dead. Hot is good or okay. Scan is to look. And then men are divided up into several groups of toys, machos, which are fighters, and cedars, who are used to make babies. On top of all this, gives you the first idea of basically the movie that you're dealing with, in that the woman leader of any tribe that exists is called the tiara.
Like the pretty crown. This is like, part of me appreciates that they tried to come up with this whole new language thing because it gives the world some sort of believability, but you spend most of the movie trying to decipher what everyone's actually saying. Like, most of the notes I took for this film are me writing down the words and putting question marks next to them and then finding out later what they mean.
It doesn't help with the fact that you do have someone who's providing narration for the majority of the movie, and they're speaking more intelligently than anybody else in the film.
Determined to free ourselves from the Frowns, we banded together in the Contams. We built our own cone out of pieces of a Newt Mercan's base called Camp Reagan. I never did figure out what a Reagan was.
But their character counterpart doesn't speak with the same eloquence.
I'm a man.
Yeah, and it's funny because I when I started watching this, I sent you a message that was just like, why are they having like an 80s nerd guy narrate the film? Because that's what it sounds like. It's completely out of place. Like, he's speaking eloquent English and then he just randomly tosses in one of these made up words every so often. And that doesn't track to the rest of the film at all.
No. And he's trying to explain what certain words are while he's having this normal conversation, and it doesn't work. Like, turns out that regs are for rules, I guess, because it's for regulation, but it doesn't make sense how they tried to get there.
Yeah, and like they say like good plastic, and I don't know what plastic is supposed to be. They say it a couple times.
I think it's referring to, since the movie was made in the 80s, it's probably common on the yuppies with plastic being like cash or currency. And if you had plastic, it was good. That you were better than other people.
I gotcha.
That's horrible insight, but this is also a movie where there's a camp of runaway men that's called Camp Reagan.
And there's that stupid joke when they we never did find out who this Reagan was. It's like, Jesus, movie.
It does, such biting commentary that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, as we're getting described what all these words are, we are seeing several men that are being assessed of what group they're going to go in. And we see a guy who's made to be he's said that he's going to be a cedar, but he gets mad and doesn't want to be part of the group, so he tries to run away, and his friend who's watching this happen runs away with him. And they get onto a horse and they ride off as women throw what looked like circular buzzsaw discs at them since they were trying to run away, and like they're hitting random people.
And those never come back. Like,
no.
They have the little tiny crossbows later, and they have other weapons, but those little things are never in the movie after that point.
Yeah. And we have somebody who's randomly set on fire, while it's mentioned that even the littlest thing would set women off. But, like, the woman's pushed into a fire and lit on fire by the guy who's running away. And they're making the comment, oh, the slightest thing would set them off. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure if anybody gets pushed into a fire, they're going to try to attack the person who pushed them in a fire.
Yeah, it's the main problem I think with the structure is I think they're trying to paint the women as awful.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're trying to make us sympathetic to half the female characters that have names. So it's very confused, and it's super sexist.
Yeah. When the men do get away, we see them trying to scavenge, I guess, in just part of the rubble from the nuclear blast for the items that didn't get tarnished for whatever reason. And our titular hero, Corvus, ends up finding a book of ABCs that has a whole bunch of words in there. You're led to guess that it's a word for each letter, but somehow by finding the book, it causes him to become more intelligent and speak better than almost any character in the entire movie.
Well, it's fortunate that the book has pictures of mouths on it, so it teaches you how to actually pronounce the word.
To sound it out.
Yeah.
Like man is man, to which he points to himself, man. I am man.
Where did? Yeah, like if there's 26 letters or 26 words in this book, that doesn't teach you how to speak English. He knows all these things that I don't understand.
It makes us question the American, or I guess just universal public school system. If this random guy in the year 2890 can find a book of 26 words and it's like, oh, I know how to string these together. I know good English.
But I like how he never shares that with anyone else in his camp. Like, it's his book.
Well, Gruss is his friend who escaped with him, even though you only hear his name like 2 different times in the movie. He seems like he maybe got to read half the book because he knows more words than other people do, but not as much as Corvus does. And when Corvus is talking to him in just regular conversation, he totally understands it, and he has a better understanding of most things. But maybe that's because when Corvus finds the book, Gruss is the one who finds a top hat.
Yeah, he's a top hat guy. I didn't know his name was Gruss until you told me that, because to me he was this top hat guy.
No, and you're confused for part of the time because they make it look like Corvus is the one who's narrating the movie, and about like 20-30 minutes in, it turns out it's not Corvus who's narrating the movie, and it's actually Gruss, even though anytime there's narration on the screen you're usually seeing Corvus. So it becomes a problem later on because Gruss is privy to events that he has never seen occur.
Yeah, and that's like, there's no reason to do that. Like, the main character is Corvus. And like, you can kind of see like on a conceptual level, like telling the story of these two people from the perspective of a side character really is interesting, but it's confusing and weird and unnecessary. And he's privy to information in his narration that there's no way the character would have been because he wasn't there.
After they find their items, the movie jumps ahead, I want to say like 10 years, maybe we're at America 2900, but we don't get the sense. Just all of a sudden it jumps ahead X amount of years because they go from what looks like maybe like 13 to 15 to being in their mid 30s for no explanation.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's now just the year 3000, and I don't care if that makes any sense or not. That's what I'm saying.
maybe the radiation causes everybody to, it takes 100 years for you to age 10 years.
I mean, that's pretty sweet radiation. Maybe we should bring on the nuclear apocalypse.
Come on, President Trump, press the button.
Come on, President.
Don't give anything away, Scott.
I'm sorry.
So when we see them, we see both Gruss and Corvus viewing what are called Plugats, and Plugats are basically cavemen. They're the stupid Neanderthalic feral men, and they're not part of the tribes that the women have. They're not any of the men who are rounded up. They're just on their own out in the world. They're even separate from the men who escaped on their own, and they try to ambush a train of women because, as the narration tells us, in those days there was no such thing as a free lunch. You had to get what you worked for, and which doesn't make any sense because it's just a whole bunch of cavemen who are off on the side who see some women and start throwing rocks at them. I didn't know necessarily that the cavemen were cannibals until the movie said that.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Is that?
Yeah, the cavemen were attacking the women so that they could eat them because they had no sustenance out in the wild. And that's why Gruss makes a comment about a free lunch for no reason.
That went right over my head. I thought they were just stealing their food.
No, they were stealing their food, and they were also going to probably rape and eat the women because they're cavemen.
Well, this movie's sending real mixed signals here because it
does.
It seems like the women have things under control then, if the men are just a bunch of cannibals.
And then you have, because of makeup, it's hard to tell. I think it's Vina or it's the current Tiara, but I think it's Vina, who gets off a horse and starts throwing a whip around, but not necessarily in the direction of the Plugats. Like, she's just whipping at nothing and walking by people while whipping the air. So I think she was trying to frighten them off.
Can I just say that all the female characters in this movie look identical, and I could never tell them apart ever, at all? Like, they all have like long, blown out blonde hair from the 80s, and they're all wearing bikinis with shoulder pads, and it's all ridiculous.
They're loincloth bikinis.
Yeah.
It's not like they're wearing like polka dot bikinis or something like that.
The only time I could tell the tiara from everyone else is when she was wearing that long dress thingy, and then she took that off, and I was like, oh shit.
Well, the issue is that everybody has a doppelganger. So when in this battle that ends up happening with the Plugats and the women, who are never called anything but women, so we don't have any catchy words for them, their current leader, the Tiara, dies, and she passes on her line to Vina, who's one of her daughters. She has two daughters. One of them has eyeliner that goes up at an angle, and the other one of them has giant hair. Vina has giant hair, and then her sister, whose name is too close to a couple other characters, has the eyeliner.
I'm sorry I didn't miss these important details.
No,
I did miss these important details.
It's how I knew them apart.
I
Vina
did
has
not.
giant blown out conditioned hair, and then her sister usually had her hair like flat down off to the side and had the eye makeup. So even though this is a primitive society that has primitive language, they do have a doctor in their camp, and their doctor runs around with a Red Cross first aid kit, mixes medicine together, and shakes it up while chanting Red Cross, Red Cross, Red Cross, Red Cross.
But it doesn't work.
No,
so
because she died.
Red Cross
died
is useless.
Like, she basically poisoned the leader. She's like, here, take this. Oh, crap, that was the rat poison.
Well, I don't know how a thing you drink in your mouth is gonna... Because didn't she get stabbed? Isn't that how the Tiara died?
She got stabbed. They bring her on a stretcher. Red Cross lady shows up. She mixes two like little beaker vials, shakes it up, and has the lady drink it. And then she looks really bad for a second, turns to her daughter, and is like, "Here, you're going to lead them. Here you go." And then just dies right away. And everybody's like, "Well, okay, let's have a party tonight." While this is going on, we're introduced to two of the movie's brilliant, confusing side characters. The first one of which is Lelz, Lelz, who is an older, effeminate man who is one of the toys, which are men who've usually had their tongues cut out and have been castrated. So once again, this movie matches, up something that all our movies have here at Phantom Zone. Male genitalia is destroyed in some form of way. So we're off to a good start.
And the movie was pretty chill with how it introduced this to us. Like, it's just another one of their voiceovers, which is talking about this poor man that's been mutilated.
But Lelz, for whatever reason, he still has his tongue. Like, they don't say why, and he's the only one of the quote-unquote toys who has his tongue. But we're introduced to him looking as if he stepped out of the worst Star Trek, the original series TV show. Like, the outfit that he has and everything. He looks like if Star Trek did an episode where people went back to ancient Rome, but on a alien planet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how he looks. But he's painting necklaces on young boys' necks.
Are these supposed to be other toys, or are these cedars? I don't understand any of this.
I think they're other toys because he's continually teaching them throughout the movie. But there's no explanation for why he's painting necklaces on them. And it's not like it's just an outside detail. Like, the camera zoomed in on him painting these necklaces on the little boys' necks.
Well, here's a question for you. What do toys do? Because, the cedars make sense. They need men for procreation. The machos make sense. They're basically workmen slaves. The toys don't make any sense because
I think the toys are different slaves. Like the machos are the ones who are building everything. They're being slaves, to build and defend, and do all that hard labor. I think the toys are like butlers, personal servants, making meals and stuff like that is what it feels like setting the table and crap like that. That's what it feels like the toys were. And they also mentioned that the toys are there for entertainment as well. Like, I'm guessing gestures who don't tell jokes.
Nothing's more entertaining than a man without a tongue. Exactly.
But I mean, nothing really makes sense because at the same time that we get introduced to him, we get introduced to the best character in the movie, Arg the Awful. Now, Scott and I aren't really sure what Arg is because the movie mentions that they don't say who, but I guess it's women, thawed Arg out from something. And they mentioned that Arg is basically the evolutionary scale going off the chart and taking a left turn. But he looks like a giant Sasquatch man.
Yeah, I guess he was at one point a man, and then radiation mutated him into giant dumb Sasquatch animal.
I don't know how that works.
He's awesome though. I love him.
He is. When we first meet Arg, they use him basically as a practice dummy is the best way to use it. Like, one of the final tests that women have before they can become a warrior is that they have to fight against Arg. And Arg fights the first person and knocks them out of the cage into the air, and they're basically dead. And then it cuts back to Arg, who's picked up a rock and is doing little Harlem Globetrotters basketball type moves.
Maybe that's what he is. Maybe he was a Harlem Globetrotter that was irradiated and then frozen. That's it. That's got to be it. We cracked it. We cracked it.
We solved it. We figured it out. So while this is going on, we cut back to our heroes, I guess. I don't know, because they're scavenging the battlegrounds that just happened between the Plugots and the women, and they end up coming across Amy, who is a toy who was hidden in what looked like under a whole bunch of food.
Yeah, they were pulling up food, and Amy jumped out, and then Amy becomes the best friend of our narrator.
Yeah, he just tags along with them. They don't really say why. I guess they just, any men they find, they take back to their camp. But then cuts back to the celebration, whatever is going on with the women, as two other clan leaders show up, one of which is from Frisco, and the other one is from Kansas, which I'm guessing is Kansas.
There you go. It's your leader right there, Adrian.
Yeah, sure. But she is a very horrible person.
Tiara of Kansas.
And when they show up, there's a sermon discussion that's being given by some lady. They never say who she is. She's not a tiara. She's not one of the warriors. She's just an old lady who shows up for this one scene and is addressing all the women. We learned another 2 words here. One is neggy, Neggy, which basically means none or no, because they use it interchangeably. And we also get what is supposed to be a shortened version of Americans, would kind of like Merkins, but the way they're pronouncing it is Merkins.
Yeah, it's Merkin.
It's Merkins.
And
Merkins and commies. And if you're not familiar,
if you don't know what a Merkin is. Yeah, yes, I do. And I will let our listeners Google that if they do not know what a Merkin is.
I'm pretty sure we can just tell them. I don't think there's any harm in it.
Okay, I don't want to tell it. It's fucking weird is what it is. It's weird as shit.
A merkin is a pubic wig, usually referred to when they're used in movies. But that's basically what it is. It's a pubic wig is what a merkin is, and it's what's continually, doesn't matter if it's man, woman, arg, whatever. Everybody pronounces it as merkins. The merkins and the commies.
See, I think this is a social commentary on Americans. This is the movie judging Americans. We're just a bunch of pubic wigs.
Basically, the movie gets even more timely, even though it was made in 1985, refers very much to today, because while she's giving the speech, she's mentioning that they're waiting for the next coming of the president. And the president is the only one who can come and lead them into the great new tomorrow, who can unite them and lead them into the new age where everything is going to be great.
So you could say that they're going to make Merkins great again?
Yep. They're waiting for the president to come along and make America great again.
Well, he's here. He's here.
If only they knew.
If only they knew.
All this is backed by rather weird music. Like, it doesn't fit, and the best way to describe it is if Hall & Oates became a hair metal band.
Wow, that's a really good way of describing it, actually. It's so strange, and it's like it permeates through everything. Like, even the weird parts, like when you're talking about a guy getting his balls cut off, or the history of the end of the world, or any of this part. Yeah, you're right. This Hall & Oates synth hair metal stuff is playing. It's so weird.
And their mixing is off because, like, anytime they have the music, it's always a lot louder than anything else that's in the scene.
Are you trying to say that they didn't have a professional, expensive mixer to deal with all this?
I don't. I'm just saying in general. I'm just making a statement. I'm not trying to be smart or anything like that.
No,
we wouldn't. I'm trying to be at
here.
the level of Corvus, basically. I don't want to put myself above him. So Corvus, after reading the book years earlier, magically also just naturally knows how to use binoculars, because he's seen, after they've rescued Amy, watching everything that's going on in the women's camp. We're not given any reason why at the moment. He's just basically creeping on all the women in the camp. He continually watches them, like, from the afternoon into the evening, while hiding behind a couple rocks with Russ, and makes the comment, "Oh, those hot frauds getting all loose and wogos," which is because the women are, for whatever reason, getting really drunk, but the men are excited by the fact that they're getting all loose and wogos. You know, like, women Always do.
But then later in the movie, they don't know what alcohol is, so I don't understand this part at all.
Well, but I think that's I think they have some type of grain alcohol because there's a giant gourd that the women continually drink out of. And in the next scene, when Gruss and Corvus and everybody enter the town to free the men, Gruss gets into the alcohol, drinks some of it, throws it against a wall, and it automatically catches on fire.
Yeah, because did you not know that's what alcohol does? When you throw it really hard.
When you throw it really hard, it spontaneously combusts.
Yep.
So Corvus and them, they wait, even though they're watching overnight and they see all the women drinking, they wait till daybreak the next day to roll into town to save the men.
Yeah, that was so weird. And the only thing I can think of is they couldn't afford lights, so they didn't want to do this scene at nighttime because they're like sneaking into town. It's like it's not even dawn. It is like probably noon, and all the women are sleeping, and they're sneaking in. They're not being very quiet,
No.
But of course they get busted because Corvus creepily goes to watch the TRS sleeping for some reason.
Well, that's not even the weird part because he's yelling at the top of his lungs when he breaks into the area where all the men are being held, and he cuts the binds for them and tells them, to come with him. And he says, where we're going, there's going to be niggy more machos, niggy more toys, niggy more breeders, niggy more, everything. And it's just like, so this is the point the movie is positing. Here are men who don't want to live by any pre-described labels.
And the only this is awesome.
It's ridiculous. At the same time, we cut from this, and basically to put this point even further, that men are the correct ones and women are the terrible, evil ones. We cut to the two other tiaras from Frisco and Kansas, who are discussing that they want to use gossip and rumors to destabilize the current tiara of this area, of what turns out to be Denver.
Women, right?
Yeah, so this tribe of women who've been in charge for years and years and years, who weren't part of the past age, 900 years prior, still instinctually know about rumors and gossip, and that's the way to bring other women down. It's terrible.
Look, it was 1986. Like, we've made strides since then. It's been like, oh my god, 30 years.
Scott, this movie is stupid.
Well, okay.
Solemn swear.
Yes, it is
Solemn
stupid.
swear. This movie is stupid.
Of course it's stupid. It's stupid. It's sexist. It's a precursor to men's rights activism. It's like, I bet men's rights activists play this at their meetings.
Oh, I believe so. So, solemn swear is what they say all the time as basically, I promise, or you can trust me. And then they don't cuss in the movie because it's PG-13. So everybody says F because they haven't learned a word that starts with F, so they don't know to say fuck it. They just say F it. And everybody says F it at least 4 to 5 different times during the movie. When Corvus is being really loud, he ends up getting caught. So, of course, there has to be a fight/chase sequence to get the men out of this area. As they're running away, the women and men, their main fighting weapon that they have is like a mini handheld crossbow, not like a dual big one that you think of like with Chewbacca. It's like, it should be a gun. It basically looks like somebody took an advanced rubber band gun and put a little bow on it.
It's the dinkiest little thing in the world, and there's no way that these would do anything at all.
They shoot people with them, and the people are like launched across rooms.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But you left out the part why all the women woke up.
Oh, that's...
It's because of our boy Arg.
Oh.
I legitimately didn't know what's going on because I thought he was on the women's side at this point because they let him out of his cage and he immediately runs to the siren thingy in the middle of the village and starts ringing it to wake all the women up. And I was like, oh.
I forgot about that. Well, the reason that he gets loose is because Corvus is like, oh my gosh, there's a cage down here. We've got to free these men. Opens it up, and Arg just runs off. And he doesn't like go up and stand there and start cranking the siren. I don't even think he meant to wake the women up, because he grabs the siren and just starts running off with it. And then like 5 minutes later, after the battle's done, he shows up with the men, and he still has the siren, and he's still cranking it. So I think he's kind of just like a little child who's like, hey, it's the noise thing. I really like it.
Yeah, that's what it is. But to me, it really seemed like he was trying to wake the women up. I was very confused.
No, that's way too smart for Arg. So during this battle and this escape, he what's his face? Corvus ends up getting shot and falls like down a crevice, ravine, whatever. I don't know what it is. Like there's a hole, he falls down into it, but then falls through some wood.
It's like 100 feet. He dead.
He should be dead, but he's not, even though he was shot in the chest, because his book blocked the arrow. And Scott and I were really confused, because when he pulls this out and he has it and he takes out the arrow, the narration kicks in from Gruss, who's not in the scene at all, and says, from that day on, I had more respect for the written word.
Yeah, like that's ridiculous. And like that's why I thought it was Corvus that was the narrator. Like at this point in the movie, we're about halfway through the movie now. I still wasn't sure which one of these guys was narrating the film.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But the whole reason that they have him fall down is because he comes across a bunker, and he opens the door to the bunker, and for whatever reason, when he opens it up, I don't know if it was a draft or what, but there is a decomposing body, still after 900 years, is still in the process of decomposing, that the skeletal hand wipes down a lever, pushes down a lever, causing all the lights to turn on. And that's when Corvus sees that there's the seal of the President of the United States on a wall.
The president.
The presidential seal. And I gotta say, I want whatever fallout shelter this is, because it's 900 years after the nuke went off, and everything still works fine in it.
Yeah, look, this part of the movie is kind of cool, and I'm look, like there's a point where the movie just kind of stops and becomes like 80s commentary on the Cold War, because Corvus plays a message from a general to the I guess this was the presidential bunker. So he plays a message to the general that's like,
Mr. President, it now appears, sir, that the NORAD warning computers reporting a massive Soviet first strike were in error, and that negative Soviet or Warsaw Pact missiles were fired first.
Just Wago is naked president here? Just Corvus!
However, in compliance with standing presidential orders, our computers initiated a total retaliatory response. All, I repeat all, land and sea-based ICBMs and all, repeat all, cruise missiles have been launched. At 0300 hours, warning satellites confirmed, repeat, confirmed, a Soviet counterstrike. Mr. President, I know I can speak for all of us when I say we didn't ask for this war. But God damn, Mr. President, we've won it. Caught the Ruskies with their pants down. Now it's up to you, sir, to lead us into a new tomorrow.
and like the general's like, we got him, sir, we got him, and it's like,
we got the bastards.
Like, this whole movie is so stupid, but in this one little tiny scene, they're making like a commentary on the mindset during the Cold War, which is we can blow them up more than they can blow us up, and like the movie gets smart for like 30 seconds, and I was like, huh,
I won't give it that because of the fact that the guy who sends the message to the president, like he just sends a message, like they're not having a video conversation, but he makes the comment that they're at the Overwatch station in space. Like these guys are somewhere up there. I don't know if they're still up there, if they're still alive, and like future generations are up there. But that's where he was sending the message from, is that they were up in this space station when everything occurred, and they're relaying to him basically what they're seeing and the chatter that they're getting back. And it's like, well, then where are these people? Why are we just finding out about this? Did these people come down? Is that were the only survivors from this space station generations later women who came down to the planet Earth thinking that the radiation was at an acceptable level to live in? Is that what, like, this is the first we're ever told of this group, and we never see them again because we just have this short, like, 2-minute video that he watched.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to relinquish that this was awesome. I enjoyed this. Like,
Fine. Whatever you say.
No, I mean, like, this movie's so stupid, and
it is.
But, like, part of me thinks that this kernel of an idea that came during the scene was, like, what they built the whole movie around.
I believe that.
And
also the radiation outfit that magically amplifies your voice like
yeah.
4 octaves lower and also projects it really loud. So he gets the brilliant idea that, hey, I am going to put on this outfit and I'm going to pretend to be the president to try to convince the women that we need to get along. I mean, he doesn't really go over it, but you're like, okay, sure, that sounds like a good idea. We see what's going on with the women's camp at the same time. Vina is going off to a cave that I guess is part of the Tiara's rite of passage, where she ends up finding what they call thunder rocks, which are like primitive grenades.
Yeah, they never explain what they are. Like, apparently going to this cave is forbidden per their regs, so she gets in trouble for doing that, but also finds explosive rock, and she says, I made them. And I don't know if she's lying. No. Or
she walks out and she just has the thunder rocks. Like, you don't see her, like, what she finds in the cave. Like, I don't know if there's another type of bunker that she comes across. So we don't know. She just goes into this cave and finds it. We find out that the way that the women rehab the Plugots is by dunking their heads into water and then have them stare at a broken mirror. Which is still, I couldn't figure it out. I rewound.
Congratulations, you're not a cannibal anymore.
This is what happens, and not the women. Sorry, the men. That's what they're doing. The men dunk the cavemen into water and then have them look at a broken mirror, and the men are like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And then they learn how to shave.
Yay!
And for whatever reason, the part of the men at the camp decide that they're going to want to go to one of the seeding camps to kidnap the woman who's basically like the first in command.
Yeah, she's like the best friend of the Tiara. So it's like kidnap her and then force her to talk with us.
Exactly. But they go to the seeding camp, which of course is where they're going to make babies. But like, she's forced there against her will. And
this
when
is
she shows
so
up,
weird.
Yeah, she shows up at the seeding camp because she's been told to go there because it's her time to be impregnated. When she goes into the seeding camp hut, it turns out that there's just one bed that has ankle and wrist restraints so that she can be tied to the bed while the seeder comes in and basically rapes her. And right before she has sex with the guy, like, the guy comes in, he's wearing what basically looks like a burqa, which I thought was horribly offensive nowadays. I understand the comment that they were trying to make. Oh, look, it's the men who's in the burqa, and because they're not as equal to the men. But I'm just like, no, that's terrible on many levels. You're trying to make a comment that is terrible to begin with. That's not a road you want to go down. but Corvus and Gruss and a couple other dudes, they're like third in command, whose name we never learn, bust in to grab her. But first they decide that they need to take off the mask of the dude who is going to rape the girl. And when they do, they have it look like, oh my God, it's a handsome man. And directly when they show the handsome man, they cut back to the girl who's on the bed, who's like, oh yeah, I totally would have been okay with it.
Yeah, she eye fucks the shit out of him. This is like, this whole scene is so fucked up. Like, so the women are completely in charge, and yet it is the woman that still needs to be tied down to the bed.
Yes.
It is the men that still instigates the entire thing. This is like so male-gazy and terrible. Like, it's awful. It's awful. Like, if I loved this movie, this part would make me not like it. But fortunately, I don't like the movie, so this is just a scene that we need to move past as quick as possible because it's disgusting.
It's a short-lived scene because it goes on to like virtually nothing directly after this. So they steal her, but they don't think that the women know. So they take one of the president's radiation outfits, hook it up to a pole, put it outside the women's camp, have Corvus basically make an ultimatum saying that he's the president and that he needs to meet with Vina at high noon the next day outside of town, and then uses fireworks to blow up the outfit.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was supposed to show his power, like
I guess
that
so.
He was disappearing, but instead it's just like, hey, I'm the president, I need you to do this, and then just blows himself up for no reason. It's great. And then at the same time, there's the other tiaras who see this and are like, oh, this is perfect for our machinations to set the other girl against Venus, and she's leaving the group. But nothing really comes of it.
Nope.
While he's getting ready to meet with Vina, they have a shot of Corvus in the president outfit, but without the helmet on, and is combing his hair while staring at an ad in a Playboy magazine for what he wants to look like.
This is all so amazing. Like the back half of this movie just descends into ridiculousness.
Oh yeah. When he rides up to meet with Vina, he's on a white horse that has an American flag wrapped around its waist. Like, the back half of the horse is just covered in an American flag that's been tied to it.
Yeah, I guess he found that in the bunker. They never really explain that.
No, they never really explain it. Not whatsoever. So he goes to talk with Vina and says, hey, just to let you know, we kidnapped your friend, but since you're talking with us as a gesture of goodwill, we're going to let your friend go. Because I guess that's how they make deals in the future.
What the president says, the president does.
Oh. So he lets her go, and Vina agrees to follow him, and he shows her the presidential bunker. When he goes back to the bunker and he leads her to that first room, the skeleton's no longer there.
Yeah, you got to get to that other.
Like, I don't know if he cleaned it up and was just like, oh, that girl's not going to want to see this dead, rotting corpse. Let me get this out of the way. But where did he put it?
They probably fed it to the Plugats.
The Plugats are just like, oh, there's a little bit of meat on this bone. We're going to take it. Maybe they whittle down all his bones into new little mini crossbones.
Oh, I'm sure. But they take him. So he takes her back to the bunker to basically Netflix and chill.
You put it away. If I wanted to pain you, I wouldn't have brought you here.
How come you did?
To talk.
About?
Man and woman.
Man? What's it, man?
She was gonna find out.
Yeah. He mentions that, there's a lot that's different about men and women, and they don't need to have what's it called? That, they don't need to just have the cedars or anything like that. And he leans in to give her like the most uncomfortable kiss that's ever been put on set. Like
because
it's
apparently
disgusting.
in the 900 years, kissing has no one knows how to kiss anymore.
Like he grabs her head rather forcibly, turns his head to the side, and just like opens up, and she tries to open her mouth to match where his lips are, and it's so gross. And then Gruss wonderfully over voiceover says, and she was about to learn what a man was. And then they have like light erotic softcore music start to play,
and then they bang.
Oh.
And it's the solving all the problems.
Well, at the same time that they're doing that, the eyeliner sister to the tiara decides that she is going to lead a charge against all the men that live in the exile camp, even though it's never been established that they know where the exile camp is. And the men can't really protect themselves because early in the movie, there was a scene where Lels is just wandering around in the middle of the desert, and he comes across the president. And they have a conversation that doesn't really make any sense, but Lels is just like, oh, the president's out there. Everything's going to be okay. When he hears that the sister's going to try to attack the exiled men's camp, he starts to run off, but gets a knife thrown in his back. And while the women are riding, he's still trying to crawl his way there. So you end up getting a big battle between the women and the exiled men. That's just a giant jumble of people that you've never met before.
Well, and it's weird too. So like the women have like the little mini crossbows. The men have some mini crossbows, but they also have laser rifles that they've taken from inside the bunker.
Well, no, they only have the one laser rifle, but they do have the giant. They have
infinity grenades.
Exactly. Yeah, they've got giant cases of grenades. Like they've got like 8 or 9 different cases of grenades. And so you've got all these men that are throwing grenades that are blowing people up. And you've got the guy who's like the third in command who grabs one of the grenades and throws it at one of the women. And it turns out that it's just a smoke grenade. And so he gets really pissed off and like jumps out and just starts killing a whole bunch of people because he didn't get to blow people up, apparently.
But then he has a different grenade later, and it is an explosive one. So that solved that problem.
It's just like there's explosions all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. You're seeing people fight, and there's explosions left and right. There's a woman at one point, a Frawl, who is running with a torch and somehow trips over her own feet. And the torch ends up hitting the grenade pile, which blows up an airplane. Like it's the front of like a jet, basically, that somebody was sitting in with their binoculars, keeping track of where people were, and it just blows it up.
Yeah, that's
for no reason.
This whole place is like covered in like old rusted out tanks and planes, and like there's like a gun turret that they're all sitting next to that I guess doesn't work anymore. This battle is like crazy, and like it probably was kind of expensive to shoot too, because like there's horses, and they're having to do all these stunts with the horses, like because the horses get hit by the explosions and then fall down and throw the riders off of them.
That was depressing to watch. Like they wouldn't do that nowadays. They wouldn't be able to do that nowadays.
Yeah. Like they like some of the horses like threw like their heads got thrown into the ground. It's like wow.
Yeah.
I mean it's crazy.
It's disturbing. While this is going on, in the like middle, the epicenter of the battle, you have Arg is standing there with his boombox, just hiding behind some metal, and then he leans down and he puts on an old army helmet while watching the chaos, and then just starts screaming and runs off into the distance.
Which is perfect. I love Arg. He does nothing this entire movie, and yet is amazing.
No, and when he runs away, he allows Amy to get blown up.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to feel sorry about that. Just like we're supposed to feel sorry about the random woman who I think was like a second in command to either the Frisco leader or the Kantos leader, who just shows up in the middle of town and like brutally kills like 5 or 6 dudes just out of nowhere, and then is just drop kicking and kicking people in the face until she ends up getting stabbed and killed. But we don't really know who she is whatsoever.
No, but I felt really bad about it. I felt really bad.
So, and then like the fighting just ends. Like
there's like a big explosion and then it's over.
Yeah. There's the explosion of the airplane, and then like the women just run off for no reason, even though they're the ones who came in to try to kill all the men. They run off. Gruss is trying to tend to some of the wounded, and while he's tending to one of the wounded, you end up seeing Arg walking in the background without his helmet, without his boombox, but he's been shot like 5 times in the chest.
I'm guessing that's just a scene that they cut out of the movie, and they didn't realize he was there in the background.
It's just really odd. Like, nobody addresses this weird thing that's been following them around, who was shown to be a proficient warrior earlier in the film, wasn't used in their actual battle.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
He never fights at all. Like, you're right. There's that whole establishing scene where, like, this guy's really strong and really powerful and kicks ass, but let's not use him in the movie at all.
Yeah.
But that, you know what? You know what? I'm okay with that, because he's the peaceful giant with the boombox.
Corvus ends up coming back into town and sees the aftermath of everything that happens and asked what caused this, and Gruss tells him, "Oh, it was the women. They showed up unannounced and were trying to kill us." And he just yells, "Vina told lies!" And I was like, dude, you guys were just fucking like 20 minutes ago. There's no way she knew what was going on.
You just
she
took
wasn't
her into
telling
a
lies.
bunker and banged her. It's not her fault.
I should have planned and said, "Hey, is there any chance that your women are going to be trying to overthrow my camp of men?" While this is going on, we cut back to Lels, who is still crawling through the desert, even though he's been stabbed in the back. And Gruss even has another piece of narration which comes out of nowhere that goes, "Lels was still trying to get to the president. The man was motivated."
Poor Lels.
But the whole reason that they have him still crawling is because Vina ends up finding him when she's trying to go back to the camp and ask what was going on. And Lels tells her that her sister decided to lead a charge based upon comments that the other Tiara women said to overtake and kill all the men. All this is backed by that terrible hair metal music, which doesn't match any of the conversations that are taking place in the movie. So she decides to ride out back to camp to try to cut off Corvus, because she knows that he's probably going to be mad about everything that happens. And they end up meeting outside the women's camp, walk up to each other, drop their weapons and everything.
This is what you want? More nuking? More fighting? Your choice, Corvus. What's it gonna be?
I want you, Vina. Your tomorrow starts with us.
And they decide to have a very, very, very long and awkward kiss while everybody in the groups just stares at them. And somehow, through their kissing, they basically give everybody boners for each other.
We didn't know what Vina and Corvus were doing. The harder we scanned, the hotter it looked.
They're just staring. Like I was like, wait.
They're just all watching them make it out.
They're making them out. Makes the guys and girls go, "Oh yeah, I like this." Yeah. Because they all like they have shots of all these guys looking at women across the way and like dropping their weapons one by one. And they even have the girl who was second in command to Vina, who was going to be raped earlier, look across the way to the dude who was going to rape her, drops her weapon, and is like, "Hey, it's you again. How's it going?" And Gruss, because the movie decides that this is a perfect moment to kind of lay down its thesis, has him say, maybe there was something men and women could do together besides fighting and nuking, and I was about to find out.
It's called fucking your way to freedom, Adrian. It's the American way.
The movie posits that only through sex for enjoyment, nods for making babies, is the only way that men and women can ever coexist peacefully.
Well, I think it's even deeper than that. I think it's literally these women were terrible because they were horny, and the only way to get them to treat us correctly is to fuck them. I mean, that's what the movie's saying.
It's basically saying, because of course we're dealing with 80s politics here, and we don't have the gender dynamics or the different acknowledgement of sexual orientation today, that the only way that the world can be thrown back into a relevant stance is for men to fuck women into submission.
Yes, basically. Absolutely. That is what the movie is saying.
This is not what Scott and I are saying. We are just conveying what this horrible film from 1985 was saying.
Right. I mean, the whole premise of this movie is, look at all the terrible things that happen when women take over, and the only way to fix that is by a man fucking the leadership out of the woman. And then we have peace again.
And with that piece brings Arg, who runs into frame out of nowhere with his boombox held high above his head. He jumps really high off a rock, and the movie freeze frames.
Bravo. What a way to end the movie. It's perfect. I love it.
It was like, it's just so nonsensical and out of nowhere. And it's just, oh my God, it's so terrible. We set up this next idea with the hopes that we'd be able to find something that was salvageable in the movie, something that we could do to fix it, to make it better. It gets more difficult each time we see these movies, and it feels like a cop-out to say don't make this movie, but lots of times it's like the only logical thing. Do you have a way that you try to fix this, Scott?
I mean, not entirely. Like, look, I think there's an interesting exploration around the idea of an Amazonian quote-unquote tribe, where women are the primary people in charge and men are the subservient ones, flipping the normal gender dynamic. And you can critique it even still and say that the issues between men and women that we have now are based around the fact that men have been in charge for so long, and those same issues can be reversed and still exist the other way around. And there's an interesting way you can explore that, but this movie is not interested in doing that. It takes that interesting dynamic and presents it in the most sexist and insulting way possible, that women are bad. When women get in charge, it's bad, and we have to fix them. And we being the two men, like, that's like, Vina is like not really a protagonist. She's completely subservient. Like, there's the one moment in the movie is when she like says, "Hey, stop," and that's it. Like, everything else in the movie is Corvus is like pushing his will on her, and like they even insult her. Like, the movie insults her when she first takes over by saying that she's not strong-willed enough to be a leader. And that's literally...
she even offers it to her sister.
Right. And that's literally what Corvus takes advantage of, is the fact that he can influence her and literally take him back to his bedroom and immediately force her to have sex with him. Like, it's so weird. So, I mean, I can't say... This is an easy tweak or two to fix it. I can say that the premise by itself isn't what's wrong with the movie. It is the execution on that premise that fucks everything up.
I'll say that's 50-50. Like, I get where you're coming from, and I do agree that if you try to find a way for it to stand on its own 2 feet, you could potentially do so, but you have to make both characters have to be compelling. Like, you have to have your female character be as compelling as the male character. They have to be as strong. They have to be on the same footing. You can't have one of them distinctly at a disadvantage and say that everything that the other one does is completely fine. At the same time, when you're trying to, even if you try to make this more of a comedy, and still saying, oh, here's the, the primitive culture, here's the distances between this, let's make fun of all this stuff. Even if you have smart people who are involved, it still might not work, because then we're basically getting into year one territory.
Yeah, it's a premise that if you're gonna approach it, you need to be smart and careful about it. But
that's what they try to do. In something like year one, they try to say, okay, we don't want to fall in these traps. We don't want to get in over our head, so we can have that be a side element. But let's talk about these things, and it still fails. You have to go like overtly, completely zany the whole time, or you have to make it like completely measured and not really have that dynamic or politics come into it, and just have it be a story about people surviving during that period. I mean,
I don't think you can tell a story about women being the in charge sex without it getting political. Like, I think that's just impossible.
No. It's the issue that you run into, and it's an issue that you run into when you have lots of films that are wanting to make statements about one sex or another, and yet you have the filmmakers who are behind it are set in one way. Like, you can't have a movie that has the women be the people who are in charge, the men are trying to fight for their stance, and have it be everyone who's behind it is men, directing, producing, and writing it. Because it's not going to be fair. And of course, it's the 1980s, so it's one of the only ways. But like, it just jumping into that isn't really a good idea in general, because you're going to alienate so many different sides. Like, when you think of movies that deal with like prehistoric type tribes, and I know that this is a post-apocalyptic thing, but it's very much harkening back to caveman mentality. But that's one of the movies that comes to mind, is something like Caveman with Ringo Starr, where they have their own language and everything, but the movie is being completely 100% ridiculous. It's not trying to have a message. It's not trying to get into those deeper themes. Or you have something like A Quest for Fire with Ron Perlman, which is very measured, and it's slower moving, and it's, dealing with the day-to-day lives of these people. It's not taking on that larger step where you end up getting mired in the mud, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and I think you're right. The way to fix this would be to make Vina one of the protagonists and give her more agency, and have her be part of the solution instead of it really just being completely men-centric. You can even argue. I mean, like, that she is the movie never makes her like aware of the issues.
No.
On the tiara is propagating by allowing these things to continue. Like, she's never disgusted by the treatment of the men. That's never something that comes up at all. Like, so she never has any, there's no motivation for her to say, oh, you're right, there is a better way to live, because she's sitting pretty. She's the leader of this group that's in charge. They have all these slaves. Like, she has no agency. She has like nothing. It's just, I had sex with her, and that made her like me, and then that made her want to listen to what I had to say, and that's it.
And she's not even aware of like, she is the leader, but she's not even aware of the people who are trying to ruin things around her. Like, she's not aware that there are these other tiaras who are trying to destabilize the group and want to put her sister in power. She doesn't address those people. They're at her camp. They come into her place, and she could easily be like, don't listen to these bitches over here.
Right.
Tie them up, kill, get them out of town, kill them, whatever trials they have to humiliate, which we're not privy to, but she doesn't do that. She's never aware. She's always away from the group when any of that stuff is going on.
Yeah, she never confronts those
it presents
women.
her as It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a ray of sunshine?
I have a person of sunshine, and that person is Arg.
Obviously.
I mean, like, we talked about the Cold War commentary part. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then Arg is, I think, the tone that the film should have set.
Yes.
Throughout it all.
Yes.
Happily campy and ridiculous. Don't
nonsensical.
Don't build an entire weird rape scene into your film. and then cut to a scene of a giant Sasquatch with a helmet on his head running around with a boombox. Like, it just doesn't work. Pick one or the other, and the right one to pick is ARG.
My ray of sunshine was in a couple of the things that were inside the bunker. They had the window that opened to a mural of some metropolis.
Yeah, so are we supposed to assume that the Cold War went on for many years after the 80s? And the end of the world didn't happen like in 1986. The end of the world happened years from then.
Well, it's 900 years after the nuke, and they're in 1890, so they're essentially saying basically 1990 is when it happens.
Yeah,
so 5 years.
So in 5 years, we develop laser weapons. That's pretty cool.
Well, we don't get to see the extent of the laser weapons because they're all dead. So it's unfortunate. I mean, the president never makes it to the bunker as far as we know. There was just one guard who was on duty, I guess, waiting for the president to show up, who somehow died at his post.
Yeah, did it not seal properly, or did he die of old age while sitting at his post?
We have no idea. He was just sitting in the chair. Like, they didn't make it seem like he went in, but inside the bunker, they've got they've got the presidential desk and everything, and then they've got like a little setup to watch TV, and then they have 2 pinball machines and 2 video game cabinets against the wall.
Oh yeah, I forgot about all that stuff.
It doesn't make it. He's like, just behind him. He walks in, the lights are on, and in the background, you hear the the sound effects from 2 pinball machines,
dude.
And then you can see the video game screens because they've got like Galaga or something that's back there.
Reagan loved pinball.
It was ridiculous just seeing it back there. It made no sense. But they're like, oh, this is what you can have. We haven't stocked this place with food. We put up a fake mural of a city that doesn't exist that has a giant bright light behind it to wake you up every morning. Just survive as long as you can. Good luck.
Good luck. I don't see a problem. What if the president had like a wife and kid, like one person bunker?
I don't know. He's all that matters. They're not on the list. Okay. Vote. That's where we're at now. Guilty or not guilty? What you gonna choose?
Oh man!
Don't go Wogos on me. Don't go Wogos.
I think it's guilty. Like, as much as I love ARG, like, he's in the movie for 15 minutes, and I can't tell people to watch a 90-minute movie to see a funny Sasquatch dance around for 10 minutes. This is not a good movie. This is an insulting, sexist movie, and I can understand why the director never directed anything ever again. This is his first and only director job.
He did co-write. What's it called? Death Wish 2.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So he was one of the people who worked within, he wrote a couple movies for the Canon Group, and then I think they gave him a chance and were like, here you go, make this movie, because we make 65 movies a year, so we need somebody to direct one of them. I gotta agree with you, guilty. It's the politics and everything. While it does encapsulate that time, there's plenty of movies that have terrible politics that I would rather people watch from the 80s. And this one I can't get behind.
Yep. Agreed. Goodbye, America 3000. And part of me wouldn't that poster that you showed me when you picked this movie had me really excited to watch this movie.
It's a great poster.
And the movie kind of let me down. Like, the poster looks 10 times crazier than the actual film ends up being.
But that's when you watch the documentary for Canon Films, that was one of their hallmarks. That's what they did. They would create a poster or a pitch, and that's how they would sell the movie. The majority of the times they didn't have a script or a director attached to it. If they did have a director, it would be somebody who had made a great film 15, 20 years into the past, and they were going to die in 5 years, and they were like, oh, this will be their last hurrah. But that's what they were known for. So that's why the poster is so great. The Canon Films has a ton of fucking great posters because they wanted mock-ups made, and then would go to Cannes and would be like, oh yeah, this is our movie. We've got Chuck Norris and this guy, and it's about this. Here's the poster. What do you guys want to, put in? How do you want to help finance it for us? So they sold movies on those ideas. So that's why this is such a great and iconic poster. If I could buy this poster, as much as I dislike the movie, I would still buy the poster just for the shot of the boombox and the American flag
It's so wonderful.
being waved by an awkward Sasquatch man.
And he's wearing the radiation suit top, which he never wears in the movie.
No, it's some other shirt. It's some other shirt. Because, I looked back at it because it's not even part of, like, the radiation. Like, it's like a yellow short-sleeve workman shirt that doesn't fit him. It's just a regular T-shirt. Like, if he was getting ready to go down to the beach during the 4th of July. That's what it looks like. But it's okay, because nobody has to worry about the movie. It's shot far, far into the deep, deep, deep recesses of space. It's been shot into the Phantom Zone. We don't have to talk about it ever again. But I will put the caveat that we will probably see other canon films in the future, because they made so many terrible, wrong-headed movies.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe assumption.
But we are getting ready to start something pretty fun. We've got March coming up. March, strangely enough, because the first week of March is a half week, we get 5 weeks of March. So we will get to cover 5 movies next month. And the movies that we're covering are all going to be part 3s of film series. Several of them are going to be horror movies. One of them is going to be an action movie. But there's lots of times once you get to the third entry that 2 things happen. It's the best film of the series, and it surprises lots of people, or it's absolute crap that no one wants to talk about. And we're going to do a fun deep dive with that, and we'll let you guys know now that the first episode that we're going to have is going to be Poltergeist 3. Much, much maligned for very good reasons.
I'm really excited about this because I've never seen Poltergeist 2, and I don't plan on watching it before Poltergeist 3, so I'm going to go into it just with my 10-year-old Poltergeist knowledge in my head, and we'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Well, I look forward to that, because I will try to explain things as best as I can to you, because I guarantee you'll be confused probably about certain characters or motivations in the film.
Is the plural of poltergeist poltergeese?
that makes it sound like it's a whole bunch of demonically possessed Canadian geese that are trying to take over.
Is it not? Maybe did I not watch the right movie? I'm confused.
No, I don't. Okay, yeah. Well, that's a discussion for a later time. Scott, where can we find you on the internet?
I can be found on Twitter at ScottDaly85, that's DALY, and also my website, dalyplanetfilms.com, where you can see all the other podcasts we do. You can also see my writing. I just did all my Oscar predictions. If you're listening to this before Sunday, you can see what I think is going to win the Oscars. If you're listening to this after Sunday, you can see if I was correct.
All right. And I can be found on Twitter at Adrian Torres. At the same time, you can go to either boomhowdy.com or downrightcreepy.com. And I've got several reviews that are up there. This past week, I put up a review of The Void that comes out on VOD in a couple weeks. I think it's beginning of April, I want to say. And then over on Boom Howdy, I had a review go up for A United Kingdom, the new movie that's got David Oyelowo.
Oyelowo. It's like yes. O-yellow-o. That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, he played Martin Luther King in Selma. And the performances are great in the movie. Everything else kind of meh. But until next time, on behalf of Scott and I, you guys behave and don't go Wogos.
Oh man, why isn't it playing? I was trying to play the fade out music and it's not playing. Why isn't
that's so sad for you.
It's sad for everyone.
It's no problem.
Oh, there it is.
I don't need no predictions. I don't listen to fate. I'm a cold soul survivor. And I've been known not to wait. In a land of confusion, no one's ready to face. If it's love that you're after, then you're in the wrong place, baby.